Hello and welcome to Nerdarchy. For nerds, by nerds, I'm Nerdarchy Dave, and today I'm joined by this nerd.
Hey, Nerdarchy Ted. How are you doing this fine and lovely evening, sir?
Oh, wonderful. So we are here to talk about magic items, specifically the Mage Forge, and kind of update folks to what things are going on with that. We might, I believe we're going to do some show and tell. I don't know how well it's going to work, using this venue. Zoom has been fighting with me for a little bit now, but we're gonna do our best to do battle with Zoom and defeat it. It's evil. Real quick before we get started, just a quick reminder that Easy Roller Dice is a sponsor of Nerdarchies and they sponsor these live chats. So do us a favor, go into the description, check out the link. Also, that sweet promo code for 25% off and get yourself some Easy Roller Dice. We've been working with them for a long time now. With that, let's jump in. Let's talk about it. Like, so this week we've moved even closer to delivering on Mage Forge. We actually got our sample back. We got it towards the middle of the week. I brought it to Ted's to open up together so we could look at it together, and so we could proof it and see how it looked. And so basically, it wasn't until the end of the week that we got back to our contact person to let them know that we think it looks good. Let's do the thing. So we probably won't hear back from them until like tomorrow, Monday, or early in the week, and then hopefully we'll get a more an updated timetable for when things should be getting shipped out to us and printed and everything. But I imagine we're at the point where it shouldn't be too long. I do have one concern. Hopefully they get it out and to us before December ends, because the Chinese New Year lasts like a month and we'll be screwed.
It's like
It'll take a
45 days.
yeah, we'll be screwed and it'll take a little bit longer. But I'll have more answers come Monday, but it's moving along. We did as I put into the update. There was a slight oversight on our part. Like, everything was written, we had everything. We had all the art assets and everything, and then like we sent everything over to our contact, and they're like, what about the box layout? And I was like, oh crap. We completely forgot the box layout. We've never done this before. Like, this is only our second physical
Exciting.
product. And yeah, so a slight dropping of the ball there. Like, the art and everything was there to do it, but it's a little bit more involved. So we had to get someone else to do it. Unfortunately, um, Daryl from Splattered Ink was able to come in and do it, but he's got a lot going on, was super busy, so it took a little bit longer, but we were just happy that he could knock it out for us. And now, as you can see, Ted was holding up. We do have a designed box.
Yeah, so we have the full box. I just the top because I've already gone ahead and opened it up here and for showing some things off. This is the production sample, so obviously, we are eager to see what to make sure everything is finalized and perfect. We did say that there's going to be a little insert on, and this is just a small little fold out thing for what doesn't quite fit on the cards. It is across all magic item types from common to artifact. So, as you would imagine, this is probably going to be some things for some legendary items, some artifacts, as well as some expanded lore that doesn't quite fit on the cards for some of the more extensively texted items.
Yeah, and if you got the digital stuff as well, um, you should have been able to download that already over on BackerKit. It is there. Also, if you did not pledge Mage Forge and you're interested, I think we have like 300 extra copies or so that that are going to be shipped to us. So you can still kind of late pledge and get in on it if you like.
And it's great.
Link is in the description.
For me, looking through, we've got magic items that have been used in our games throughout all of fifth edition, both some as players, some as dungeon masters. I was actually talking to Robin, who was in the Scarlet Sisterhood, and her character Kenna, the their character Kenna, the weapon of choice was Last Breath, and I was looking at that particular item art. And it's like, oh, from the Scarlet Sisterhood, we also have the Glade Glaive and pen. are in there from my Dawnbringer's game, the actual weapon that my character had a hand in forging, which is Gerta Brelne. That is in there with the permission of Mini Terrain Domain, who he's the DM for that. Um, so that was a very interesting scenario to be like, all right, this is something my character made. So I was pretty enthused to see that item, in physical print, here in front of me.
Yeah, and last night we played your We Live on a Boat D&D game
Mm-hmm.
with that group, and previously I had run my Court of Worms game for that group, and Ted had brought the decks of cards with him, the samples to show off, and he's like, "Look, here's these two cards. They were in our last game."
Yeah, the spirit bracelets of Alhuna. This is the bracers that Pratima's character was using, and it's like, hey, here's that. So like it was getting passed around, and then the sword that my character wielded, was in there as well. So I had showed that off, and I'm like, this is just so awesome to just have that in the hand. Not only from the memory aspect, but like from the aspect of for dungeon or for DM prep, I was like, all right, well, I want to use this, for my game. So let me go ahead and pull out some of these items. So I had, depending upon how things went with the game last night, I was going to be just like, boom, here's the stack of cards of what you found here. And then just kind of like show things off. Now, these aren't the items that, they were found, but you can just span out, hey, this is what's in the loot pile. And if you're familiar with magic item decks, that's a standard thing. Um, but I don't know if all other decks do this, but ours are kind of color coordinated. So if you look at the top thing here, there's a gem at the bottom. So whether you're looking at the top of the card or the bottom of the card, that's uniform across all of that type. So that light blue means it's a rare item versus this, red on that side and sparkly at the bottom means that's a legendary item. So it's fun to be able to have that all kind of done up. And while I was doing some DM prep yesterday, I sorted them all out into the different magic item rarity types. Just be like, all right, how big is this? And it is an extensive stack for rare. It's more than some of the others combined.
We do like making rare magic items. I
I
think
think
that's
that's
because a lot of the items that we make that go into our games, they're they don't necessarily have to be, but they're kind of unique items
mhm.
in the way we present them. Now, that being said, there's no reason why you couldn't take that magic item and say it was replicated. And there is more of them. But
Yeah.
generally, like the original one kind of has a story to it, and then like we like to use that in the lore when we hand it out to our players.
And I think rare magic items are in that kind of second tier, and I feel like we play there far more often than anywhere else.
Yeah.
We might start in first tier, but then you're going to level rapidly in those early levels, and then potentially slow down in that mid tier, and you might not play that game all the way into third and fourth tier. So like your kind of epic finale is going to be on that very rare kind of magic item reward level. So I feel if it fits more it's more fitting, in that kind of range.
Yeah, and we're going to also talk about other things in general as far as magic items go, not just the Mage Forge and the product, even though we do have the link down in the description. You can still pick it up if you haven't already. And also feel free to just ask questions about, what we think about magic items, magic in the game, or if you have obviously, if you have specific questions about Mage Forge, you can ask those as well. Um, but, how important to you are magic items to you as a DM, Ted?
So I feel that magic items are incredibly important for a point. I mean, obviously, it's not more important than the story. It's not more important than, is everyone having fun? I feel like those kind of things are certainly going to come first. But magic items, I feel, are the DM's way of putting something unique, possibly like individualized rewards into a game. Like for a thing like Mage Forge, it's perfect for or any ready-made magic item is put in there to be able to give standard loot. But when it comes to a game, I don't think I've run any kind of long-standing campaign where I haven't customized magic items for the players at some point in time. Like that's one of the things that I love doing. Making magic items is, I think, first and foremost in my love of DMing.
How do you handle? And I know we've gotten this question before, but how do you handle when you do that and you make you make specific items for specific characters? How do you make sure those characters get them?
So that is a good question. There have been times where I've made custom magic items and put it in as party treasure, and it's absolutely gone to somebody that I was not expecting it to. And in those situations, like it's hands off. Like you can't forcibly do anything. No, as a DM, like you can talk to the table, the players, and be like, well, this situation was put here, and you can try to see how negotiations are going to go. And it's like any other kind of mediation, there's no guarantee that the result that you want is going to come out. And in some cases, the player who you originally designed it for, they're like, let him have it. I'm just going to move on, and I'll take whatever other piece was left over. So like sometimes it's not going to happen. Other times you can have an individualized story. In one of the games that I was in, a powerful NPC was presenting essentially an item to every single person in the party. So like we were in like a manor, everyone had their own rooms, and piece by piece, this NPC visited us and was presenting, here, this is for you. So like not only they're a one-on-one for that part of the session, but an NPC was like, this is yours. So like in those situations, it's like, yeah, all right, this is clear that this is for that person. Other times I've done where like with your dwarf, the weapon that you were wielding, it got changed into the magic item.
Yeah.
Through play that happened. So when you change something that's already theirs, it pretty much stays theirs.
Unless a rogue comes along. No, yeah. So you brought up like one of the points that I would have said, and I've definitely done that, where it's awarded or presented to a specific character, which also I think kind of helps too as far as advance the story, kind of like you said, but it also kind of ties the characters into the campaign a little bit more. And I just feel like generally a specific character that receives a powerful gift like that from an NPC, they're gonna definitely skew how they feel about that NPC more favorably than they did before. Like I know Bloodfang, had his weapon enchanted in front of him basically by like a dragon high lord.
Yep.
Or dragon emperor, for service to the realm. And so that kind of stuff works really good. Nexus mentioned you can also limit it to a specific class. And matter of fact, the bracers that you showed initially, they were limited to a specific subclass. But we opened that up a little bit and tweaked it in a way that kept the kind of theme and feel of why it was done originally, and kind of broadened it. And that's another thing. Like, I would just want to touch on real quick, Ted.
Yeah,
is because like we make a lot of these magic items and we put them in our games, and then we're like, well, we know how they work, and like we don't need further explanation because they're being played in our games and we just intuitively understand them. But then like taking those items out of our games, we had to go, oh, wait a minute, somebody that's not me has to understand how this works and integrate it into their game. So
right.
Like that took a little bit more work and finagling.
Like the spirit braces of Alhuna that Dave made. Those were initially created because we think categorically the Way of the Four Elements monk, you know, gets a bad rap. Gets it's got a problem because you can't do the monk things because you're spending all of your key points to do your four elements thing. So none of the other monks really suffer from that kind of thing.
They
So,
they do get the slight bump from the fact that I think as a bonus action you can make an unarmed strike if you spend key points.
but that came after.
Yeah, that came after.
That came later, and we had already had this item made for the game. So
Yeah.
one of the core things of that item is that it doubles your key points, which for any standard monk, it's like holy crap, double key points. This is awesome. But it was designed specifically for the four elements monks so that you can spend half your key points on your elemental stuff and half your key points on the other thing, with that caveat of like, all right,
Yeah.
you can now be the monk you want to be.
Well, that's the thing. Like Way of the Four Elements Monk is like a fan favorite, especially with new players. Just because it's like, oh, this is like Avatar. This is really cool. And I never, as a GM, want to discourage a player from doing something
Mhm.
that they're interested in doing. Like, like somebody did with my son. When my son was playing Away the Four Elements Monk, and he's like, Uncle Ted said they suck. I want to change my subclass. I'm like, well, they're okay, but here's this issue. And then so later we had this other new player, and they wanted to play it. I wanted them to have as much fun as they could. They were a new player, and I wanted them to be able to do all the cool things. So I was like, how can I fix this? So I gave them a magic item that did some things, but then in addition to that, I just doubled their key points so that they would be able to do the cool things as almost as often as they wanted to.
Right. And that worked, and they had an absolute blast with that particular character, and everything was successful. So when we went to move it into the product, we had to mold and tweak some things, make some changes. Um, you know, but that's not the only item that had some changes in the aforementioned artifact that my character had a hand in. It's got some pretty potent abilities. Well, when Jake from Mini Terrain Domain did the write up, and I'm not in any way, shape, or form looking to put a slate on Jake. I think he's an absolutely fantastic GM, and I love being a part of his games. But he had assigned the thing as a legendary item.
Mm.
Fact that it has a name, it has sentience, it has a mission, and it has some ridiculous power. I'm like, I don't feel comfortable putting this in as only a legendary item. This should really be an artifact. And when other people looked at it, they kind of agreed with me. I didn't feel I needed to add anything else to it because it was already pretty darn potent. So like, all right, here it is.
Well, there's also a big difference between having wiggle room for your home game, that you're playing in, and taking something and being like, okay, now it's something else someone's going to slot into their game
Correct.
and use it. And if they're using the guidance that you give them and it skews a little weak or a little strong, they might not be prepared to compensate for that
Right.
and adjust. So you have to try and make it as accurate to the most common denominator you can kind of conceive.
Right. And that's what I was looking at, because realistically, if I'm playing a game and I feel like, hey, I've got items and I'm going to give one to Dave and one to Doug and one to Fred and one to Bob, and they're different power levels, but they're all going to feel they're each going to enjoy them the same amount. I don't feel like I've undervalued anything or what have you. So like, all right, well, this person got a legendary and that person got an artifact, but if like they're both +3 equivalents and have some other things, does it really matter in the long run?
Oh, kind of circling back to one of the things you said as well is I feel like in our games maybe even a little bit more so me, I like to bestow magic on items that the players already have more
Hmm.
than so than giving them new magic items.
Sure.
Uh, and you know, there. I mean, I think there's several examples of that's come up over the years where I'm much more likely to do that. Like, you know, Bloodfang, his great sword just kept getting better and better. Uh, yeah. Last Whisper was a cool magic item that, or Last Breath, not Last
Last
Whisper.
breath.
Last Breath
Yep.
was a cool magic item. It was just a stiletto that could turn into a short sword, just a plus one weapon. It was a gift from the character's grandmother. Totally did the it's dangerous out there, take this. Um, and that later got upgraded, you know, as well. And the glaive was another item like that got warped by magic.
Yeah, it was transformed. It was a regular glaive that like it got imbued with like fey powers. Uh and I thought that was pretty awesome. Um
And
yeah,
also, it's a good way to not have the wrong player get the right item.
yes.
So like because they already own it, right? And also, just like I guess one of the reasons I like doing that is because like how often has a player been like, I fight with my grandfather's longsword, right? And then as
Well,
soon as they get a plus one longsword, they're like, sorry, grandpa, and chuck that over their shoulder.
and that's exactly why we transformed Gerta into Gerta Brelne
Uh,
because the barbarian's thing. He was using his father's hammer. And like he was doing like, all right, I've got a standard maul and a +2 great axe. And I really like using the maul, but oh crap, this thing needs magic to hit. So like my character started, you know, I'm very easily the kind of person that like, oh, I'm gonna take this thing here, and this is a sentimental thing there, and
yeah.
oh, over like 6 months worth of sessions, like making notes on essentially like the loot drops and the things that I had found to kind of begin crafting and figuring out the pieces of how I was going to modify this mall. And then I wound up doing the ritual and obviously all of this with the GM's permission. And then I happened to like add some extra bit to it. And he's like, oh shit, he used that card. I'm doing this now. And he totally like souped this thing up to far more than what was initially going to happen. That was a badass thing, but it transformed a player's essentially family heirloom into now this Uber thing.
You know, it makes for memorable moments in the games. So Nexus says, "What are the basics for making magic items? More importantly, runes." I'm not sure what the last part of that actually means, but you want to weigh in on the basics of making magic items?
So there isn't a hard and fast rule for fifth edition. There are some third party products out there that go into uh, like, oh, well, here's some potential steps that you could take. The DMG has a little bit of guidelines based off of set rarity values and how much work you can do in any given day. So like if you were to say like an uncommon magic item costs 500 gold, to make it costs 250, and you can do like 5 to 10 gold piece value worth of work in a day. So figure out how many days from there, 25 to 50 days if I get my math correct, to work on that magic item and make all of that progress. And that's for just a simple +1 weapon. Now, if you want to go through all of that, cool. That doesn't sound like it's a lot of fun. But some DMs will say, "Oh, well, the time that you spend just planning goes into that, and the time of harvesting and pulling out can go into that. And if I'm going to add in this 300 gold piece gem, well, that could come into this aspect and could, oh, it's going to reduce this thing. It's going to be reduce the cost, or it could reduce the time. And there's so many different you know possible ways to amend, it gets crazy. But unless you're playing with some serious downtime as a player character, it's a lot harder to actually do the enchanting without some serious buy-in from your dungeon master.
So you went from the in game. I was thinking more of the out of game aspect, but yeah, that works too. I for me, like I guess like my approach to making magic items is when I make something to put in the game, I want to say something right about the campaign and the world and what's going on without me monologuing to my players. I want them to ask me, what does this mean? Where did this come from? What is the significance? And I feel like magic items are a really good way of doing that. And then from there, once I figure out kind of what I want to say, well, how would that influence the power of this particular magic item? Depending, and also depending on how strong of an item it is.
So if you're looking from an out of game perspective of how do I make magic items, there are times that I'm looking for, oh, well, Dave's character is a warforged barbarian with a sea themed who fights with an anchor on a chain. He's using this, barbarian subclass that's based off of, um, a game. What was the game, Dave? The League of Legends, or was it another thing?
What is that? Oh, yeah, that was the League of Legends thing.
So like he's got all of these components. I'm like, all right, so if I were to be making a magic item for him, you know, I would have to be looking at like, all right, well, does he care about reach? Does he want to have, this other thing and build upon what this, subclass can do? Is it necessary? Is it not necessary? So like I would begin looking at all of these kind of pieces and either look for what is it he already does well that I can build upon, or what is something that is lacking that would kind of fill in a gap for him. Um, you know, Generally, I haven't really come up with anything for salvage as of yet, but it's going to happen hopefully at some point in time in the future.
He's happy. He was able to take the pirate hat of protection from a vanquished foe.
um, but a lot of times, like I make magic items entirely based off of anything that inspires me, and it could be nothing to do with what actually is out there. Like I was watching a game, and one of the characters was always inspired by like their character was a painter, and there's a painting toolkit and the whole nine. That's what their character got into. So I'm like, well, they do some fighting, they do this kind of thing. So how cool would it be to have like a weapon and shield combination that the shield is like a major paint palette and the weapon is like a club, but totally like leaves paint marks when it hits, and you've got the ability to like essentially transform the things into like a bona fide paint palette. So you always have access to paint, and your weapon becomes the paintbrush. So you can kind of do the whole thing. And then, perhaps from, the vantage point of, um, doing the paint, making a painter supply check, maybe you do so with advantage. You've got the ability to add some like extra effect, like color shifting paint, which would
Yeah,
not,
yeah. Or minor illusions or something.
so like you could make
Sparkles. You can paint in sparkles.
so like you have all of these things, and it was entirely just came out of nowhere because this one character in a stream that I was watching liked to paint, and that was it. So like I jotted those ideas down. I haven't done anything with those, but they're out there, or at least they're in here somewhere in one of my Google Docs. But like anytime I'm watching something and the slightest inspiration hits me for a magic item, I'm like, all right, I'm gonna do that thing.
So a couple things. Ye sits Tom to you. I want to see a handkerchief. of invisibility, possibly salvaged from a unfortunate former owner of a cloak of invisibility that got caught up in a fireball. And so in my mind, I'm thinking like it's a handkerchief, like you place it over something and then lift it up and it can turn it invisible, but only things that fit under the handkerchief. So it's like it's only like this big, a loaf of
That
bread, pile of coins.
that is, kind of hilarious. I can certainly imagine, that kind of thing, falling into the hands of, a stage magician, or, some pickpocket who's trying to, get people in trouble.
So a Nexus, couldn't an artificer and a cleric of the forge speed things up or skip some steps? I don't when creating magic items, I don't ever recommend skipping some steps. But I do feel like you could, if you use the formulas in the books for making things, having someone assist as opposed to giving advantage on the checks, you might instead speed up the process because you have more hands. And I do feel like an artificer and a forge cleric could work together fairly efficiently.
I would completely agree. I've been an artificer and I've, seen games with artificers, in use. They've got, quite some snazzy stuff. Artificers tend to work faster than everybody else. And especially once they get high enough that they automatically get advantage with all tool uses, so that they're proficient with. So that's fancy. I don't remember off the top of
They
my
don't
head.
get advantage; they get expertise,
Sorry, my apologies.
which is in some ways better.
Yes. And then with the Forge Cleric, I can only recall, their first level domain power, off the top of my head, but it's pretty nice to be like, all right, here, every day, that's +1 magic item, for 24 hours is nice.
Yeah, and also like I mean, it would be a great scenario for some RP. We've definitely done things like that in our games where we've combined the efforts of the different players and their characters in order to create things. I mean, we kind of like that kind of stuff. Um, I think like even fairly early on, like you let one of the wizards that wasn't super high level try and create a magic ring,
Hmm.
and they did so to some degree of success, but they didn't quite make what they wanted.
Yeah, it was a bit of a bit of a tough situation, and like there wasn't the complete hard and fast kind of rules at that point in time.
There's still really the rules still really aren't that great.
I know. So it was one of those things. I'm like, all right, sure, I'm here for whatever agency need be done, and well, they want. I don't even remember what they were trying to make or what I let them have. I might
I
have been
think they were trying to make a ring of water walking,
okay.
and I literally don't think it had anything to do with anything going on with the campaign at the time. That's just what they wanted to make, and they didn't they didn't roll high enough, so you had them accidentally make a ring of water creation.
So like, yeah, I'll take your word for it that that's what happened. But I mean, like, I don't like to. I don't want to punish failure. He had a cool idea. I'm willing to give it a shot. So I'm like, sure. You get something for your efforts, and I think the player was pretty happy with it.
Ooh, pardon me. Yeah, they were actually very happy with it. Although if they crit failed, you could have had them make a curse that magic item.
Yes, that is entirely true. But I don't think it was a crit fail.
It wasn't. Make instead of a ring of water walking, it becomes a ring of drowning.
Oh, geez.
it just makes you sink to the bottom, and you can't take it off.
You can't take it off, and you are just pulled to the bottom. That's pretty damn horrific.
Good idea, Ted. We'll have to make that.
I mean, I have no problems, coming up with let's make some evil stuff. I mean, it's not all about sunshine and rainbows. Sometimes bad stuff's got to happen too.
Yeah, I mean, I I don't think we don't really use that much curse stuff in our games though.
Not usually, no.
I think like instead of curse stuff, I prefer like maybe we should work on
Works.
some stuff that's more like monkey polish, where it kind of does the thing it's supposed to do, but
Hmm.
with like a drawback, and then it becomes like how bad do I want to use this thing to do the cool thing? Am I willing to pay the price?
Right.
I think that's a lot more fun than just like, oh, here's this item that's just gonna screw you over. I like the idea that like they might be tempted to consciously choose to use it.
Right. Yeah, I could definitely start working on stuff like that. That I always enjoy those kind of things. It doesn't have to all be, the good stuff of magic items that I'm working on. So why not?
Nexus is that the game where they're creating their own followers? Uh, I have an armor artificer cleric of the forge at my table attempting crazy things. I want to rule of cool it, but just trying to keep balance as well. That is always the trick. Like it's fun to say yes, but also you have to watch that your players don't abuse that and figuring out the sweet spot. I think we were talking about it um, in one of the other live chats, and one of their players was animating something and awaking it. I think it was like potatoes or something. Like they're making potato people, I want to say,
Oh
and
my word.
and trying to and the players trying to get them to worship them, and he wanted to know how many potato people they needed to become an actual deity.
Um, so the animate objects only last so long, unless they're like doing something else to keep it animated.
Well,
Awakens forever, sure,
yeah.
but I, I I could not speak to how many things have to worship you to achieve complete divinity, but it's going to be work. I don't think that's going to be a process of a small handful. You know the
42. 42 is the number.
the strength of the belief and the number can need to be part of that formula. Uh,
Potatoes, yeah. See I did remember that thing. It's weird the weird things my mind decides it will remember. No, nothing important or useful, just that
yeah.
Nexus had one of his players making potato people to worship them in their game to become a god.
Well, I mean, I don't know about potato people, but I've used radish people and
Uh, oh,
you know,
you did too, you jerk.
Tome of Beasts 3 has some onion people in it. So
Nexus says they upgraded to coconuts because of the AC bonus. No, you should have kept with the potato people, but they wore coconut armor.
mm, if they animate, then they awaken. Dear God.
Yeah. Although I don't think animate really will last that long, but that's fine. Whatever's fun for your game. I mean, the best part is to then have them eventually have them turn
So,
on the players, turn
so
on their
are the
gods.
so are the potatoes wearing coconut armor? Are they the Kokomora from Moana?
I don't think so. JB says coconuts also use the cavalry rules, and I believe that is a Monty Python reference.
Oh,
The knights with the coconuts.
yep, yep.
Yeah. Oh man, it's been a long day, folks. Sorry.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I've
It
had a
might
very
get weird up in here.
very long weekend, but the animated coconuts with the animated potatoes with coconuts that might become a thing for me. I might have to sick that evil upon someone.
That seems like a good thing for your kids' game. I feel like attacking your kids and the other kids with potato people is the way to go.
We have a session in a handful of days, so I can certainly do that.
Yeah. Oh, did you ever do the multiplying goblins to them?
I have not.
Uh, Bummer.
The well that particular campaign did end. They like it did increase, and there was more. Like
Yeah.
it literally it got to the point like the
Well,
camp.
let's start from the beginning, so because we're kind of like rambling from the middle of the story.
Sure. So the players bought a house and had a crew to goblin lackey. Goblin very much not usually welcome in town, but this one happened to be nice. Bloody bloody blah. And the goblin was kind of like their pet wrangler. So of course, all was all happy and good. So they had the goblin and the pet stay at the house while they went off and did their adventuring thing. Well, they came back once and there was another goblin. And they got frustrated and what have you. And it's like, no more goblins. This is, can't do this, can't do that. So they came back another time and there was a third goblin. And the one player, which is the only adult in the team, he's like, I'm putting my foot down. No more goblins. Just three of you. Under no circumstances, that the other thing. So then there was like some extended time where they were out and about, and as we're kind of getting close to the end of this campaign, they come back and like the door's locked, and the goblin's like, nope, this is our place now. There were more than the three goblins and this and that. There was obviously strong words to be had, shall we say, by the players, and it didn't come to drawn swords and spells of flying, but they found a way to get the goblins to be accepted by the town, got them set up with their own place, and actually, I think the goblins kept the original house because they had the tunnels dug deep, so the goblins had some places to go,
Access.
and they went and got another house because at this point in time, they had done adventuring and had some decent money. So like, well, we're gonna go live over here. It was pretty darn hilarious. The dwarf actually said, "You guys keep the house," and he retired out in the woods to go be with his sprite wife. Um, I don't understand how that all works, but yes, the 400-year-old dwarf married a sprite.
What do you mean you don't understand how it works? You're running the game.
I,
I was like, I don't
I
know. They just took over and dwarves are marrying sprites and
I,
they're
I
in
don't
the
I
woods.
don't
I don't know.
I don't know how that relationship works, but
Hmm.
yeah, I understand how the world works. I could not believe when that player was like, "Yeah, I think this would be fun," and you managed to just
Was
get.
it a sprite that you introduced into the game?
There was a random encounter with a sprite,
Yeah.
and the dwarf took it upon himself
It's
to,
like this is wife material here.
yeah, the dwarf was crazy. Everything was completely messed up.
Was that Billy's character?
No, that was the other adult's kid.
Uh I know it had to be one of those two because I know they're a little bit goofier. Kids do weird things in games.
Kids do weird things, and if things go awry with that player's current character, he's like, I'm totally coming back with a fairy with a beard, and I'm gonna be my
The son of or daughter of.
yes, yes. So it's like, oh,
Okay.
so it has already been not only mentioned, but like it's like you can kill my character. It doesn't matter. I've already got the backup,
I
and you're not.
already got the backup, and it's going to be even crazier than the one I have now.
So it's an absolute blast. But the
I feel like you're getting bullied by your players there.
I'm here for it. They have a good time, and I give them a backdrop to play in, and they sometimes come up with crazy things, and sometimes I'm the one like sicking crazy goblins on them with ridiculous names and what have you.
Yeah. So last night you ran your game, and
Yeah,
that's we all live on a boat. Although it's a bit of a misnomer now because our boat got sunk, and it's more like we all live on Flotsam now.
oh wow wow, 2 sessions where you're not on a boat.
It's true. We're not on a boat for those 2 sessions. We are on an island though. We're just
Yeah,
gonna
the
change the name of the game. Yeah. So we got shipwrecked on an island essentially,
mhm.
and Ted is trying to kill us with wreckage golems. We've befriended some cursed fish elf people.
Yep.
Uh, we're not really sure what their deal is yet, but we think they're gonna make fine sailors, which is good because most of our sailors died.
Yeah.
So
And yet again, another character in the party is looking to, seduce an NPC. The
yeah, it happens eventually. It's those paladins. It's those vengeance paladins.
is Pawnee Vengeance?
No, no, but Pani's god is a vengeful god.
Oh, that is
Even
true.
though that, because I'm pretty sure, like, I think she's playing the critical role, paladin, the one
Oh, was it
with,
the Open Sea?
yeah, I think she's playing the
Okay.
oath of the open sea.
But she worships Maltritus, which is the our god of the oceans, which is definitely vengeance oriented, but not all need to go down that particular road. You can just be like, all right, I respect this thing's power and don't want to piss it off.
Yeah, but her backstory is she's hunting somebody, so she's totally leading into the vengeance part of that god.
All right, well, I best go back to the backstory because I don't remember who she's supposed to be on.
Yeah, so I think they came up with the backstory, and they're definitely a little bit of Princess Bride going on there. Matoya,
You kill my father, prepare to die.
yeah, basically. So that's definitely going on. Yeah, so I think when we left off, we like defeated like the giant that was kind of overlording this
So you
this
guys had
island.
found your way onto the island of Petera, and there was lots of wreckage all along the coast. After you spend a little bit of time discussing and licking your wounds from being out at sea, and started to make your way inward, the wreckage kind of all Voltroned up and decided to beat the snot out of you guys. You guys did a decent job of fighting it before it exploded, and I believe knocked a couple of you unconscious. You put yourself back together, did some healing, took a short rest, and decided to continue further into the island, where eventually, your monk wound up noticing a pair of like yellow eyes looking from the brush, and wound up being one of these, for lack of a better word, an elf that's got fish scales as skin.
And Mouse totally tried to Steve Irwin the elf. It didn't work very well though.
Yeah. Well, he didn't know what it was at first because it was like crouched low to the ground. So he
Yeah,
thought it
but I
was
felt like he was trying to like soothe it and calm it like it was an animal and trying to get it
right.
out from under the bush.
Uh, so I think he was expecting to be like, oh, make an animal handling check or something. And it's like, nope, this thing took off.
Yeah.
Uh, before we kind of venture in, next has got a question. Remembering all the small details is the hardest thing for me as a DM. Any tips?
Notes. It's the only thing
No,
that really works.
no notes is absolutely an important thing. I use Google Docs is how I tend to run. And if I feel like there could be something that needs to be its own thing, I can hyperlink between docs so I can just bounce from one to the other if need be. I know that there are numerous, softwares out there that you can, kind of workshop a campaign or a world, as you need, and keep all of your notes flowing. But I feel like
Yeah,
I would get lost in some of them because
yeah,
I'm
World Anvil's good for that. Campfire is good for that. At this point, I feel like there's other things that do. Demiplane might have some function there as
Mhm.
well. There's a ton of stuff, but yeah, you can just low tech it with Google Docs. It's free.
one
I
of One of the Nerdarchy fans out there that I talked to, he's got like 25 years worth of notebooks. It's all done by hand, and I'm like, man, you got to digitize that stuff. Like that is
Yeah, that's tough. I mean, I use D&D Beyond a lot. The campaign. I put all my notes in there. Although I will say it does get a. I mean, you can link stuff, but it does get a little tricky because what ends up happening is it's just like infinite scroll. So like I'm like scrolling back up to like 3 sessions ago, trying to look for what
so
I found.
that's where like Google Docs works for me. So like
Yeah,
I put like my campaign starter, then I put the player information, which when I ask them like, all right, do you have any goals that you want to have happen throughout the campaign? Like I can put them all in there. I've got all of their names and backgrounds, classes, all of the stuff that's there. Then I do major NPCs that's there. If I have any other important facts that I need to put in, and then I have you know broke it down session by session, and then all of those like title headers are heading marks off on the left, so I can jump from one to the other. Um, so I feel like that's been my flow for I don't know a little over a year now, and
yeah. You don't use the encounter builder though, do you?
I don't. Nope.
I do like using the encounter builder, and I like it because you can link it to a particular campaign.
Hmm.
So it kind of gives you the difficulty level, and then when you run the encounter, it automatically populates it with your PCs, and then and if they actually roll their initiative on D&D Beyond, it just populates it right into the
Right.
encounter builder, and then you can automate the initiative for the monsters, and then it tracks it, and it is so much easier than any other method I've ever used. And it
Sure.
also, like, oftentimes I won't give monsters different initiatives just because it's too annoying to track. Uh, but with D&D Beyond, it is a lot easier just because once someone takes a turn, you just click next, and it tracks it for you. It also makes it easy to track the damage, and you can also pull up like the different monster stats from whatever's in the encounter right there. So it's just convenient. They're not even a sponsor of ours anymore. I just like that feature.
I mean, we can point people to things that we use. I don't feel like we can only talk about things that are sponsors.
No, no, like NASCAR. uh,
So Josiah T, any suggestion on killing recently revived dead deity from Shadowfell? I'm having it going to town, killing all but one, and gaining a hit die every town. Um, that's So if you're the DM, you don't have to worry about them killing it. That's
that's
on
their problem.
out. Um, you know, I would say having learned this lesson the hard way, uh, regardless of what the players do, you should not be doing all right, this is what the bad guy does because when you're not actively playing and not rolling, it's very easy to just be like, well, the bad guy was successful. I had worked myself into a corner where I'm like, I don't know that the party can succeed because the party doesn't have all of the information, whereas I, as the DM, do. So my villains, who were supposed to be smart, were getting things done a lot faster than the PCs were being able to unravel their plans. And I'm like, this is not good. So I'm very happy that campaign kind of floundered because I didn't see at that point in time what was actually going to get the situation resolved. So if you're talking about, all right, you've got this stat block of a revived deity that's out killing things. All right, we'll work on your stat block and figure out, well, when do you want to have them fight it? And when they go to fight it, you want to make sure it's something that should be challenging but doable.
But now, if you're the player, this is what you do. You need to go to the town before this recently revived Dee does and kill everybody first.
Yeah, I don't think that's a good idea. Unless you're going to get something out of it.
Well, it's not about you getting something out of it. It's about them getting something out of it. If they don't get to kill them, they don't get to add to their hit dice. So there, and then also you're grinding, right? Instead of rabbits, it's peasants.
I really don't think that's going to work. But
it may not be super heroic, but
luring the thing into a trap, doing something where you can do an extensive amount of damage to it before it can get to you. Be it catapults, ballista, magic spells, all of the above. If it's attracted to where there are a lot of people, and if we're talking about killing a deity, I assume we're talking about a higher level. So perhaps you've got a gate spell that can be done, and you've got people sitting there waiting, and as soon as as soon as the thing approaches, all of the people begin going through the gate. So there's all of the rabble, the people who are not going to exist in the fight, are able to get out of dodge and get to safety.
But yeah, I mean, and Ted is right. Like, as the GM, you don't really have to figure it out. Like, you just have to figure out, like, where do you want the final encounter to be? What is the process the players are going to have to go through? Why does it gain hit dice for the slain townsfolk, right? Is it like eating their souls, absorbing their souls? Is there a way to free the souls from this deity during the combat as a way to kind of like bleed off all those extra hit dice it picked up? And then you can make it more than just a combat. Like perhaps it requires a ritual or some kind of special skill challenge that's going on in the middle of the combat in order to make things a little bit more interesting. So it's just not a hack and slash.
So those are just some ideas of how to deal with that.
JB's got a solution to help people organize their games. So just could just hire a retired court recorder to take notes. Although then you still, unless they're taking them digitally, you still have the same problem of a million notebooks.
Well, I imagine the court recorder could take it via, via a computer versus the little typing machine they've got. Though I do know that they use a bit of shorthand.
Yeah.
Recently done the extensive note taking at a session. It is legitimate work, and I applaud Dr. Kurt, who's a player in our game, who takes the notes. We have the one game where we have a note taker, does a whole thing, and then the week before our next game does a shared write-up, from the perspective of his character. And he's been doing it that way for years. And
yeah, I don't even start writing I don't start planning my session until I get his notes.
Well, if you want to, they've been done. I was gonna wait for our next the week before our next thing, so that.
Well, it don't matter. We're not playing that game until what, January?
January, yeah. So you've got almost 2 months at this point in time.
We have our Saturday night games that we play. So we play 3 different games with 3 different groups. But we take December off because December just sucks.
Yeah, December is laden with stuff, and that's before we begin looking at whether or not we're attending the wedding of my cousin in the end of the month.
Oh yeah.
I still am undecided on that particular event.
Oh, you don't know if you're going to.
I've got 4 days to figure it out.
Plenty of time.
But December is just laden with things, and I'm like, I don't know what's going on. So extra stuff might not be possible this year. But I took notes, and trying to role play and take part in combat and take the notes as to what has actually happened. I'm like, man, this is tough. How's he do it?
We'll see how it came out.
And then
Ted's
before
no Dr. Kurt.
I'm not Dr. Kurt, I guarantee you.
Did you put pictures and images in it? He always puts pictures and images.
I did. I have already selected the picture for it.
Sometimes he gives us helpful advice like never search this term. Or do,
well,
but you've been warned.
well, I didn't do any of that, but I definitely did add, player spice into it. And since we've been getting
Uh,
a vantage point of Styx, it'll be a little different from the vantage point of Vel. So I hope that it's
yeah.
too much of a culture shock. And then there was the also drastic change that has happened within that last session. So like that might be a little bit of culture shock for Dr. Kurt to figure out as well.
Yeah, when he reads about it, one of our characters gave birth to a necro brain baby. And the baby's, I don't know if it's the baby's mama or the baby's daddy is a hag. I don't know
I
which
th-
is which.
I think the mama is the hag. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah. I mean, because the goblin, he got impregnated.
well,
So
right, but he's still a he, so like
yeah,
still a she. I don't feel just because the goblin was the
carried
one
the baby. He's like a
who had the baby.
seahorse.
Sure,
Yeah, he's he's the seahorse of Under the Dome.
sure, I'm here for it. So it was a
Uh,
lot of fun to get to go through all of that process. And should it need to be happen again, I will gladly do it. But you know, it's certainly not easy.
Weird things happen in our games sometimes. So, do we have any final orders of business to put out there before we head on out?
As a reminder, this is now the thing. The normal Sunday is where we'll do these kind of chats. I think at one point in time it was Sunday before.
Once upon a time, I think we used to do it Saturday afternoon too.
But for the time being, this is where it's at. While we did talk about this, taking December off from our games, we still will be back with our normal Tuesday night game.
Yep, those bastards will be happening Tuesday night at 8:30.
And
Let's
we've
see
got
if
some
I.
things in the work for what happens when that series is done, but that Tuesday game is expected to continue.
Yeah, so we're having fun with that. We'll be doing these throughout the month of December, even if we won't be doing our games. And links in the description for Easy Roller Dice, one of our sponsors. There's a sweet coupon code there for 25% off your first order. Also, if you haven't purchased the Mage Forge and you would like to, you can late back that. We got some extra copies, not a whole lot. We got a few hundred. So if you're interested in that, you got those in there, and you might find some other things like Zoo Mafia, Quick Start Rules, that newsletter. You can sign up for that and get our RPG that we're working on. So I think that pretty much covers everything. Everybody who celebrates Thanksgiving, have a great Thanksgiving. And until next time, stay nerdy.
Stay nerdy.